and did run to bring his disciples word. You may be seated in the presence of God. Thank you, ushers. You may be relieved of your post. My brothers and sisters, allow me to press my way in this sermonic presentation by saying how strange it must have been to see women filled with so much joy in a place like a cemetery. I mean, what a strange and unusual place for smiling faces. What an unusual place for joyful hearts. You see, you and I don't usually see people departing from a graveyard filled with joy. Listen, it is strange to see people excited about a graveyard, amen, and you see them exiting a graveyard with broad smiles and delighted spirits. That's strange. I mean, and those of us today who are familiar with this report are all but too aware of why they are so filled with joy. We all know those of the Baptist faith, the church, amen. Those of us today, already we know the reason behind their joyfulness. I mean, we know the reason why they ran and for the great delight they had. And for those of you who are not familiar with this report, these women are running with great joy, exiting with cheerfulness, is because they have just received some good news. And they have received this news in a place that is usually characterized as by great depression and great distress. But I must tell you, brothers and sisters, that these women rejoiced and exited the graveyard with their hearts aflame because they have received, while yet at the sepulchre in the cemetery, while they are in the graveyard, they received some good news. So today, I want to simply talk about, amen, good news from the graveyard. Good news from the graveyard. And if the army of Christ here and there are gathered, I would that you repeat out loud after us, if you would, good news from the graveyard. Now give the Lord a hand praise for what he's about to tell you. Like many of you, brothers and sisters, like myself, most of us, if not all of us, if you are familiar with graveyards. You and I have made frequent and reluctant trips on so many occasions to the graveyard. And I have gone leading grieving families and loved ones to the graveyard. Some of you seated in this place today have been parts of some of those grieving families that I've led and accompanied to that silent city called the dead. And all I'm saying is that we know quite well about graveyards. And periodically, brothers and sisters, we pass graveyards and we glance over and we see the tombstones. We see the markers as well as the various floral arrangements which have been left there to adorn some grave. And we struggle all in an effort to look away, to look in some other direction, because we don't desire to focus long on graveyards, because if the truth be known, graveyards can be extremely depressing. Well, Pastor Trainer, why are you saying they are so depressing? Well, it's simple, because the graveyards call back to our memory, our recollection and recall of our own past loved ones, friends and family members that once walked and talked with us here on earth but have passed from this walk of life. It becomes depressing. Yes, graveyards conjure up depressing memories, but now graveyards also remind us of our own mortality. Graveyards also remind us that we are only here temporarily. Graveyards send a quick reminder to each of us that we are not here on a permanent basis, that as others have gone, that sooner or later, whether we go by going stretched out to be deposited or whether we be caught up, sooner or later we got to leave here. So some of us may end up leaving here by some disease, some germ, some virus, do you not know, can take us from this waltz of life. And so, brothers and sisters, some infirmity can cause our lives to come to an abrupt end. How many of us today have seen loved ones and friends who seem to be so strong at one time and look so well, and then suddenly they gone? Graveyards remind us that a drunk driver can bring our lives to an abrupt end. That we are only, as David the psalmist puts it like this, we are only a step away from this thing called death. No wonder you and I, when we see a graveyard, we quickly look away, and it's simply because we do not want to be reminded that our day will eventually come. But today, brothers and sisters, I rejoice because God in the report would use an unlikely place, the least likely location, to bring to the world's greatest news. Good news for all ages, good news for all people, good news for all races, and good news for all creeds or color. And this news would come from the graveyard. Brothers and sisters, I don't know about you, but permit me to tell you that you and I have grown weary in this day and age of so much bad news. Look like everywhere we turn, it's bad news. It seems that everywhere we turn, we are constantly bombarded with bad news. I mean, every time I turn on the news, like CNN and those of others, it seems that the vast majority of the news program is comprised of what is qualified as bad news. There's a portion of my spirit that hungers and thirsts for just a bit of some good news. And brothers and sisters, if the truth be known today, good news is seemingly to become harder and harder to find. I mean, all around us we see evidence of things occurring by way of signs of mishaps and misfortunes. And I've concluded, like the old warriors of the church, of what they used to say that certainly applies to our day and time, and that is, if it ain't one thing, it's another. But permit me to say that on this occasion, according to the report before us, some women who were in desperate need of some good news, brothers and sisters, received it at the graveyard. Now, I'm almost through with the message. You see, Friday was over. The tragic crucifixion has ended. His death on Calvary was a thing of the past. He had already been taken down from the cross and carried away from Golgotha and buried by Joseph of Arimathea in Joseph's new tomb. And yes, Friday night has passed, Saturday came, and no resurrection has come. So Saturday, brothers and sisters, they were between crucifixion and resurrection. Somebody gonna get that in a minute. Yes, Saturday